In today's video, we are going to learn about fact families and how we can relate addition and subtraction to one another. I want you to think quickly about what a family is. So it's a group of people that maybe live together or do things together. Each of our families may be different. Maybe there's a mom and a dad. Maybe there's two moms, two dads. Maybe you have brothers or sisters, or maybe it's just yourself. Aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, cousins. There's lots of different people that can make up a family, but it's a group of people that kind of stick together. You may celebrate holidays together, or you spend time together and help one another out. So a fact family is made up of three different numbers, and I like to relate it to our part-whole box that we've been learning about. So we have, in the fact family, we have a part, we have the other part, and then we have the whole. So there's three different numbers that make up a fact family. So if we look at this and have our part-whole box, we might have a part, another part, which is 3, and those two parts go together and make the whole, which is 8. So we learned before about the commutative property where we could add 5 plus 3, or we could add 3 plus 5. So no matter which way we order the numbers, we still get 8. And so this would be an example of part of a fact family. So this is just part of the family. 5 plus 3 equals 8. 3 plus 5 equals 8. It uses the same numbers, but they're in different orders. So that commutative property that we've learned about before is actually part of a fact family. So fact families actually have 4 different equations. So two addition that we've learned about with the commutative property, and then we have subtraction, 2 subtraction equations. So let's take a look at this part-whole box again. So we have one equation that we thought about when we always think about that addition sign in the middle. We could do 5 plus 3 equals 8. That's one equation that we can have and one part of the fact family. We could also do the turnaround fact and do 3 plus 5 equals 8. Notice that it's the same numbers, they're just in a different order. We also started learning about subtraction sentences that could go with part-whole boxes, and this is the other part of our fact family. So in order to do that, when we're subtracting, remember we always start with the whole. It's the biggest number. So my next equation I could write might be 8 minus 3 equals 5. So 8 minus one of the parts equals the other part. Then to complete the fact family with the second subtraction sentence, we have 8 minus the other part, which is 5, equals 3. So if we take a look at these, you'll notice that we have the same numbers. So here's the 5. It's in each of the equations. It's just in a different place. We have the 3. It's in every single one of the equations in the fact family, but it's just in a different place. And same with the 8. It's there every single time, but it's in a different place. So we can see those all together, that each of those pieces are there. They're just in a different order. And so there's 3 rules that we think about with fact families. The first one is that the 3 numbers within the fact family stay the same. So no matter what the equation is, we have 2 addition, 2 subtraction, which is our rule number 2. The numbers stay the same. We don't add any other numbers. We don't make other equations that equal different numbers. We have to keep those original 3 numbers in that part-whole box with our fact family. Then that second rule is that we have 2 addition and 2 subtraction equations with our fact families. And finally, all equations must be true. So I like to go in at the end and make sure, is this a true equation? Because it can't be something that doesn't make sense or isn't true. So if we go back to our part-whole box in our equations, we looked and we already checked off that, yep, they all have the same numbers. They all have a 5, a 3, and an 8, which is part of that part-whole box of that fact family. We look and see, is there 2 addition and 2 subtraction? Well, we see we have 2 different addition and 2 different subtraction equations. So we've got that one down. And then are they all true? Well, if I take 5 and 3 and put them together, I really do have 8. Same with if I put 3 first, then 5. Yep, that is the same as 8. If I start with 8 and take 3 away, I really do have 5. And if I have 8 and take away 5, I really do have 3. So all of them are true. You have to make sure that this is true each time. So all have the same numbers. 2 addition and 2 subtraction, and that all of the equations are true. Let's take a look at another example. We have 6 as one part, 4 as another part, and then 10 as the whole. I want you to pause the video now and try and write the different equations for the fact family. Before you unpause, I want you to check. Do they all have the same numbers? Are there 2 addition and 2 subtraction? And are they all true? So pause the video now and see if you can come up with 4 different equations. So hopefully you were able to go through and come up with at least a few. If you couldn't come up with all 4, then hopefully you were able to come up with maybe 1 or 2 of the equations that could go with this part, whole box in this fact family. So here's the ones that I came up with. 6 plus 4 equals 10. 4 plus 6 equals 10. 10 minus 6 equals 4. And 10 minus 4 equals 6. I want you to check yours now and see which ones you were able to get correct, and maybe add the ones that you didn't have or fix the ones that weren't quite correct too. You can pause and do that now. As we're looking through these, let's double check. Do they all have the same numbers? I should have 6, 4, and 10 in all of my equations, which I see that I do. I should also have 2 addition and 2 subtraction, which, yep, I do here. And all of them have to be true. And if I have to go through and draw a picture to check, then I can do that. But if I do that, I can see that all of these are true. It's not something silly like 6 minus 10 equals 4. That would not be a true equation. I really can subtract 6 from 10 and get 4. Those are all true. So we have all 3 of the things on our checklist, and we know that we have our fact family. I want you to try one more example. So again, pause the video, looking at this part, whole box of 3 as one part, 4 as another part, and 7 as the whole, and see if you can come up with this time all 4 equations that belong in this fact family. All right, hopefully this time you were able to do that as well and use the checklist. If you didn't already, pause again and use that checklist to check, is it the same numbers? Are there 2 addition and 2 subtraction, and are they all true? So here's the equations that I came up with. I always like to start with the addition. That seems easiest for me. So I said 3 plus 4 equals 7. 4 plus 3 equals 7. 7 minus 3 equals 4. And 7 minus 4 equals 3. If I use my checklist again, all of them have the same 3 numbers. I didn't add any other numbers that don't belong in the family. There are 2 addition and 2 subtraction, and yes, they are all true, and I could prove that by drawing a picture or using counters to help myself. So you have a couple of different options of how to show your understanding of fact families today. So there's 3 papers on the counter for you to choose from. You get to choose one that you would like to show your understanding from. So you don't have to do all 3. Just choose one. I'm going to go over each of them briefly, and if you have additional questions, you can rewatch the video, or you can ask a neighbor or ask Mrs. Willoughby if you need help. So here's the first one option. This one has 2 of the parts already for you, and you're trying to find the whole and then making your 4 equations in the fact family. So again, I want you to keep in mind our checklist. That's all the same numbers, 2 addition and 2 subtraction, and all of them are true. So if I look at this first example, the numbers are already there for me on this one, so I don't have to do anything extra to come up with the numbers. I see that one part is 4, the other part is 2. If I put them together, then I have my other number, which is 6. It could be a good idea for you to write the whole up at the top here, so I might write 6 up here so I can remember the third number. Now, in order to do this, all I have to do is swap these 2. So I know that my next one is going to be 2 plus 4, and that still equals 6. To think of my subtraction one, I remember I start with my whole, and I take away one of my parts. So I have 6, and I take away 4. If I have 6 and I take away 4, I should get 2. Then again, my last one would be 6 minus the other part, which is 2, equals 4. So before I move on, I have to check, is it the same, all 3 same numbers, 2 addition, 2 subtraction, and are they all true? I know that those are true, so I can move on. You would continue with the other examples here so that you complete all 4 of the problems. Another option for you is to use dominoes. So there's one example for you here. What you would do is go over to the math materials and pick out 3 different dominoes to use for your parts. Let's say, for example, I pick out a domino that looks like this. I'm going to record what my domino looks like over here. So make a copy there. And then I would write the numbers that make up my fact family. So 5 is one part, 3 is another part, and then the whole would be 8. So this part right here just tells me the numbers that are in my fact family. And then here is where I'm writing my equations. So using those numbers, I would write my 4 equations that make sense. 5 plus 3 equals 8. I can do the turnaround fact. 3 plus 5 equals 8. Then starting with my whole and subtracting one of my parts, 8 minus 5 equals 3. And starting with my whole and subtracting the other part, 8 minus 3 equals 5. You would pull 2 other dominoes and record your thinking here and here for this sheet. Your final option for showing that you understand fact families is doing our fact family dice game. And so what you would do with this one is this gives you a little bit more practice with more chances to practice, this time using dice. So I would roll 2 dice. Let's say I got 2 and 4. I'm going to use these squares at the top to record my dice that I did with dots. Then I would write my equations. Again, it might be helpful to write your whole. If these are the 2 parts, you could write your whole up here. So I know that 2 and 4 would be the parts. My whole would be 6, so I might write it up here. I could use that to write my equations down here. So I would start with a part put together that makes a whole, which would be 2 plus 4 equals 6. I can do the turnaround fact. 4 plus 2 equals 6. Next, I start with my whole and take away a part. 6 minus 2 equals 4. And then finally, my whole, take away the other part, equals the final part. So 6 minus 4 equals 2. Again, this one, I would repeat the steps over and over again until I've completed all the practice problems on the page. So you only have to choose one. You don't have to do all of them. Whichever one you choose, you can turn in the turn-in bin and then look up at the board for your further jobs. As always, if anything wasn't clear or you're not quite sure what to do, please rewatch the video for further understanding. Or you can also ask a neighbor quietly to help you.